Please note that the meeting today is being recorded and will be uploaded onto YouTube shortly following its conclusion. The microphones are spaced around the room to pick up the audio, so can I ask people to speak clearly and reasonably loudly? Finally, we have apologies today from councillors Caroline Goodrick, Mark Waters, Andrew Hollier, along with Dr. Stuart Green. Also from Rachel Antonelli, the Director of Legal and Governance, is also unable to attend today. Because of the number of absences, we are not quorate this morning, so therefore we are not able to make decisions, but we will continue this meeting as an informal meeting, and obviously our comments can be considered by officers as appropriate. So if we move then to item, do you want to add anything? No. We'll move to item 2, the minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, 22nd of April, 2025. Does anyone wish to raise anything regarding the accuracy of those minutes? No. Okay. Declarations of interest. Sorry. As I say, we can't make decisions, but perhaps we could agree an indication that we're minded to approve the minutes, if that's agreeable. Yeah, okay, thank you. Declarations of interest. Does anyone need to declare any interests in today's business? Yeah, okay, thank you. Public participation, item 4. We have no public questions or statements received by the deadline of 12 noon last Friday. So we can move then to the annual report of the Head of Internal Audit. Good.
Thank you, Chair. The quorum report on pages 3 to 5 hopefully helps to signpost, as well as a brief introduction, which I will provide to members now on the report of the annual report of the Head of Internal Audit for the year 24-25, which was also the first full year of the combined authority. As we mentioned in paragraphs 3 and 29 of our main report, in our role as Head of Internal Audit for the non-fire and non-police side of the combined authority, in line with professional standards, we're here to present to members that kind of first Head of Internal Audit opinion. Page 7 onwards has that detail. There's possibly 3 separate parts to the overall report, again mirroring expectations levied by our professional standards in respect of the content in here. The first side from pages 9 and 10 onwards gives members an update on the audit work that we've been completing. The work was sufficiently completed for us to take on board the findings while making our judgment for our opinion, but as explained in paragraphs 7 and 8, we are just finalising some of those reports with officers at the moment. Paragraph 12 onwards talks in great detail about the quality assurance side of things, which is again another thing for members to gain assurance in line with standards that internal audit has been provided in line with those expected standards. So both in paragraph 12 onwards and Annex C, we provide greater detail on the work that we've done or we've been assessed against in terms of the compliance with our professional standards. We also highlight the changes from April to the public sector internal audit standards being replaced by global standards as well. From paragraphs 23 onwards, which is on page 12 of the pack, we go into our opinion in greater detail. We discussed this with Mike and Rachel as part of the process of conversation before this meeting. The opinion we explain in greater detail, paragraph 24, which is a limitation of scope. In paragraphs following on page 11, on page 13, sorry, on paragraphs 30 onwards, we also highlight two areas which we raised with management for inclusion as part of their annual governance statement, covering information governance and risk management. They'll, in the subsequent agenda item on the annual governance statement, members will see that both of those are referred to in the AGS, as well as the reference to the limited assurance opinion. So hopefully that helps to kind of signpost some of the key parts of that report for members, because there's different parts to it. Happy to answer any questions members might have on the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Cliff, sorry, Councillor Dunn.
Sorry, do you have any detail of what the breaches were? Or is there a generalisation of, or are they all low level?
I'll have to come back to you, Clive, on if you want the
Yeah.
detail, but none of them were significant, although I think one had to be reported to the ICO, but none of them were what you class as a sort of significant serious breach, but it's still worrying that there's.
In North Yorkshire, we do test emails, etc., to test that, and some of them are called breaches. I wondered if it was just that sort of level, if it was more important, where it was actually giving it open to something. I'll wait some more info. Thank you.
Paul, do you want to give a summary on the significant data breach and the reason behind it?
Was that on the data breach?
Sorry, I'm getting mixed up with that line. So apologies.
Yes, I can't give any details on the data breach, unfortunately. There has been a separate issue around FOI, and I'm happy to comment on that.
It's a later report. Apologies, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions? No. Again, in that case, would we be minded, if we were able to approve the recommendations in terms of the three issues of note? Okay, thank you. We then move on to item 6, the Information Governance, Counter Fraud and Risk Management Progress Report. A Verito report. Max?
Thank you, Chair. So this report details the work that Verito have been providing in Q1 for the Combined Authority around information governance, data protection, risk management and counter fraud. Hopefully the report's fairly self-explanatory, but I'll just highlight a few things. So in terms of information governance, we have been doing quite a lot of work in Q1, and a significant proportion of that has been sort of supporting the authority with making sure that some of the grant funding is being has appropriate data protection safeguards in place. So there's a lot of work going on with that. We're still working on providing support to sort of standardise the sort of policies and processes within the authority, and that's to ensure that the sort of consistency of practice and as a way of sort of eliminating some of the potential risks. So, for example, data breaches. We've had the first meeting of the newly established information governance group last month. And from the report, there have been some more data breaches. There were 7 data breaches in Q1. None of those were considered to be significant. FOI performance has improved on last year, so it's currently coming in at 87.5%. It's still under the ICO recommended performance level, but it has improved on last year. And the performance around subject access requests is currently 89%, so it's pretty much where we need it to be. In terms of counter fraud, there haven't been any concerns or issues reported to us, and therefore we've not done any some investigation work. And in terms of risk management, the authority has just recently appointed a new assurance and risk manager. And we are sort of starting a conversation with him around how we can perhaps support phase 2 of the risk management project that we previously talked about. So happy to take questions on the report.
Could I just ask about, in terms of reaching the ICO's recommended standard, do you think that we now have all the necessary measures and resources in place to give us a reasonable expectation we might meet that? That's probably also a question this side.
It's small work to do, but we're going in the right direction.
It's one of the, because this was information on one of the items raised in the OPS, which is a driving attack later on.
Yep.
What Deborah, who operates on our behalf through Veritone, has done is quite recently set up an overall foreign-wide information governance group, which is set up with the terms of reference to look at this, because I think some of the delays, I wouldn't necessarily say the issues arise because of the complexity of the organisation, its current triple track. So that's designed to put that together. So I'd agree with Max in terms of the work to do, but the control to start pulling that work together is already happening.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have any questions? No. Okay. Would we be minded to approve the recommendation?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Item 7, the internal audit charter. Stuart again.
Thank you, Chair. Item 7 presents to members the updated internal audit charter, which is an important document which, in its primary purpose, I suppose, is to support the work of internal audit, but also in the way that we write it, it's a way to help officers, the committee, and ourselves work to a kind of an expected standard, or enables us to understand and appreciate the different aspects of these standards that we want the organisation to run to as well. We, as I've touched on, I suppose, in the previous report, talked about the new global internal audit standards replacing the public sector internal audit standards. So that's required a refresh of the charter itself. In the main, as I mentioned in the report, it doesn't practically change too much the way that internal audit starts, plans, completes its work. There have been some changes to do with bank mandates, certain standards requiring internal audit service to have strategies and so on. So there's been a few changes, mainly in the first half of the document. I think it's helpful for members to appreciate the wider document. The changes themselves are not so significant, but understanding all of the document is helpful to understand aspects of your role. And if there's any questions or comments, sorry, the only other thing was we shared with Rachel and Mike beforehand proposed changes. And for those who were involved in other organisations, with Veritone, we ourselves, in preparing this charter, went through quite a QA internal process to create a base that is based organisation. So if you've seen these at North Yorkshire Council, City of York and other, it should be very familiar in terms of style and process, but bespoke where necessary to the requirements of the organisations that we're serving. Any comments, questions? More than happy again to answer those if members have them. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Not seeing any. Right. Again, now this is one which we would need to formally approve, so this is going to have to come back to the next meeting. But perhaps we could agree that we would be minded to approve it again at this stage. Okay, thank you. Let's move on then to item 8, the external audit progress report. Mark.
Thank you, Chair. In our last report, we mentioned the expected guidance in regard to rebuilding assurance, given that we issued disclaimed opinions for 23-24. The National Audit Office has since issued this guidance in the form of Local Audit Reset and Recovery Implementation Guidance, or LARIG for short. It aims to help auditors rebuild assurance for specific transactions, account balances and disclosures, emphasising a proof and total approach or historic testing. Auditors will be required to complete a detailed risk assessment to determine the approach they will take for the current year's accounts, which is 24-25. Due to this disclaimed opinion issued in 23-24, we're currently reviewing this guidance to understand its impact on what procedures and the timeline we'll use for the current year's audit. We anticipate that the authority's draft accounts will be ready in early August. Therefore, we plan to schedule the audit for the autumn concurrently with the audit of the Chief Constable of North Yorkshire. However, this could change due to circumstances. We do plan to report our value for money commentary at the end of November, independent of our financial statements or accounts work. As part of this work, we'll follow up on the recommendations included in the 23-24 annual auditors report, those being around the medium-term financial planning arrangements, risk and performance management arrangements, and account production. The rest of the report is some links to national publications, which we hope we find useful, provide some context. Happy to take any questions.
I suppose the most obvious one is with that new guidance, does that in any way simplify what the requirements are and give us a better chance of actually achieving our audits on time?
That particular guidance is in and around how we do the reset. So because we issued disclaimed opinions last year, it's what auditors have to do to get that assurance for issues that they didn't get in 23-24. I think for the combined authority element, it shouldn't be too difficult because the balances were minimal anyway. However, it's the police and the fire side of things that we're working through to see if we can use that proof and total approach. But that's being considered at the moment by our technical team. So I'll have more of a picture as we move forward.
Thank you.
There's other guidance mentioned in that report in and around what's happening with the local audit office and things like that, and how they're going to try and potentially, well, they will be providing more oversight and steer in terms of local audit going forward. But again, that's still infancy.
Doesn't necessarily resolve the resources issue, does it? Yes, right, okay. Councillor Lunn.
Is this effectively a clean sheet we're starting from after all the problems we've had, both authorities in previous years with audit?
Theoretically, if we get this proof and total approach bottomed and we can get that assurance from the 23-24 brought forward balances, after 24-25, you'd then be back to clean sheet because we still don't have, or we may not have the assurance we need on the brought forward balances, but we may, depending on how the guidance is interpreted.
Yes.
But our technical teams, as I say, are looking at that just to see if it stacks up and how we would actually complete the work.
Thanks.
But we Mike and Mike's team just to see how that'll pan out.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? No. Would we be minded to approve this report? Yes. Thank you. Right, let's move on to item 9, the financial statements update. Mike.
Thanks, Chair. So this report provides a status update on the combined authorities 24-25 draft statement of accounts. It outlines the reasons for the delay in publication. While the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015 require publication by 30th of June, the deadline wasn't met due to operational challenges and integration complexities. Basically, the additional workload associated with consolidating police, fire and general budgets for the first time across separate systems. The delay does, however, reflect a national trend across local government bodies and other combined authorities, but we've managed it in compliance with the statutory requirements and issued a formal notice of delay on our website on the 30th of June, which is still published. The decision to defer publication was taken shortly prior to the deadline, largely to protect the well-being of staff in the teams and make sure that the quality of the output was adequate for scrutiny. The committee is asked to note both the content of the report and the reasons for the delay, and a revised publication date will be confirmed following completion of the internal assurance processes, with final accounts to be reviewed at the next meeting of this committee. And as Mark said, we hope that that'll be late July, early August.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions or comments? There are none. Are we minded to approve the recommendations in paragraph 2.1? Thank you. Item 10.
That's me again, Chair. So agenda item 10 is the draft annual governance statement for the authority. So this report presents the combined authority's draft annual governance statement for 24-25. This is a key statutory document that outlines how the authority has complied with its governance framework over the past year. The statement draws upon a broad spectrum of internal and external assurances, including audit findings, statutory officer reviews, and service outputs from across all directorates, including policing and fire. It reflects the authority's first full annual governance statement since its establishment. The document was prepared jointly by myself and the monitoring officer, and it evaluates the effectiveness of governance arrangements and sets out progress against the SIPFA and SOLACE principles, and highlights development priorities for 25-26 that we're working through this year. It also identifies some significant governance weaknesses and actions that are being taken or planned to address them. The committee is invited to review and comment on the draft AGS. Following consideration of any feedback, the final statement will be signed by the Mayor and Chief Executive and published alongside the authority's final accounts for last year, in line with the accounts and audit regulations. Those are key themes in the report. As we said, it was the authority's first full year of operation, and it was shaped by rapid mobilisation without much of a preceding shadow period. So government structures have been developed and built in parallel with operational delivery. And despite the compressed timeline, there has been significant progress made. We've appointed statutory officers, embedded core frameworks, adopted a refreshed risk and management approach, set up our statutory committees, and integrated the newly devolved functions such as police, fire and transport. The AGS reflects these achievements while recognising that there's areas for future development needed. The priorities for 25-26 include consolidating financial and governance systems and processes, refining performance and risk management, strengthening our workforce planning and improving public transparency across delivery streams. The areas of weaknesses identified included delays to financial reporting, the absence of a medium-term financial strategy, and immature information governance processes, but each is now subject to a clear improvement action plan. So in conclusion, the AGS affirms that our governance arrangements are proportionate to the authority's stage of maturity. It acknowledges the challenges of the first operational year, but also the clear momentum and commitment to continuous improvement. The foundational elements in place and targeting plans for consolidation, the authority is positioned to build resilience and deepen its governance effectiveness in the year ahead.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions or comments? Can I just raise a couple? 2.14 refers to the role of the Audit and Governance Committee, but doesn't actually mention our role regarding the Constitution, except that it's picked up later in some of the detail. Perhaps that's a defining paragraph on our role. It ought to be included there. I turn to paragraph 3.6. The last sentence says the Combined Authority Audit and Governance Committee receives the minutes of the JIAC and IAC committees as part of its agenda and receives the annual report of the chair of JIAC and IAC. We haven't been receiving those reports, so I think that perhaps needs to be slightly reworded.
I'll adjust that, make sure that's addressed in future, and I think the annual report should now be available so they can come to the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. There's a few mentions in this report of the ModGov system, but I couldn't see any mention of the kind of teething problems that there have been with rolling that out. I thought maybe that deserves a mention, especially seeing as, you know, there is quite a large section about being a new authority and getting everything set up from scratch. I think it is relevant to good governance principle B about openness.
I think Paul might have some more comment on that, but we saw mod governance as a solution to something that was worse. So I appreciate that have been some challenges, but hopefully we're there now. But we'll make sure we reflect that in the statement.
Yeah, I think what we could probably do is expand those matters to more go to generally around the tools that are available for the committee administration. So there are certain tools we use for running meetings like this, but there's also as well more general transparency. I don't think mod is necessarily a catch-all for all of them. But we can expand that to make sure.
Yeah, there are some comments around that because it's linked to some of the stuff on information. So I think one of our general areas for improvement, other important for me is around making sure those bits of transparency are as clear as possible and trying to bring them together more clearly across our separate delivery strands, including the boards of the policing assembly.
Councillor, find any problems with mod gov? I'm using it now. And the switch between authorities and.
I think there were some issues with people getting notifications of things happening at the start, so it wasn't necessarily the content was difficult, it was people not knowing that things like email alerts.
This report was about the previous municipal year when I think some members of the public had trouble with being notified of documents being published.
So I think those are addressed, so we think that's a quick win. But we'll do more.
Raise another query in terms of Appendix 1, page 76, Section G, in terms of how we're delivering the good governance principle. The audit oversight and external compliance paragraph refers to the audit committee playing a vital role. I just wondered whether that should also refer to the IAC and JIAC committees as well. We've got audit and governance rather than just audit. Then on page 79, Appendix 2, at the bottom of the page, the progress in the right-hand column appears to have lost some words at the end of the sentence. Then on page 81, there probably also needs to be some reference to IAC and JIAC in that section as well. On page 86, at the Appendix 3, where we're dealing with the policy and framework gaps and information governance and internal assurance issues. The second bullet at the bottom of the page refers to the authority will conduct a review of the scope and specification of information governance services, which you've already mentioned earlier. Do we have a time scale for that? And will that pass this committee at some point?
In short, I think Stuart caught me at the beginning of this meeting is that we have a number of things we want to discuss on the audit and governance and information governance side fairly imminently. I think we'll probably do that quite quickly, and it will be within broad of the scope of Deborah's wider group as well in terms of that. So we'll certainly bring an update to the next committee meeting, probably through Max's paper, and then determine whether either that's proposed or there's work to move it forward.
Okay. There are no other questions or comments? Can we agree that we would be minded to approve the recommendations in report and noting the 3 recommendations? Agreed, thank you. Let's move on then to item 11, the risk management update. And Adrian's due to.
Chair. First of all, I'd like to introduce you to Nathan Beswick. He's come in as our new assurance and risk manager, a much needed pair of hands to help me in terms of moving this agenda forward. So Nathan's going to be getting involved in the risk policy and procedures that have just been approved. He's going to come in and help roll those out across the organisation. We're going to be looking at business continuity planning and building on what we've got already, and revision of the assurance framework, which sets that out of risk now and make decisions to provide confidence to government that we're acting with probity, transparency and openness, of which we've got to revise later this year, like transport that's coming our way and stuff like that. So just thought I'd introduce Nathan to you. So moving on to the risk registry itself, I mean, this obviously builds on the previous meeting and the risk that we identified. Then we've added a progress update on the risk register so that members obviously can see what movement we've made in terms of addressing some of the risks over the last 3 months, and obviously put that risk and travel indicator on. I mean, the plan going forward, again, one of the tasks that Nathan and I are going to look at is start filtering out this risk register so that we are capturing the true corporate risks and moving some of these risks down to directorate risks as well. But obviously, for that first iteration of the risk register, we thought that it was important that we saw the full scope and scale of the challenges and the risks that we were facing. So points to note on this edition of the risk register, I would say, are most of the risks are unchanged from a scoring perspective, although we have made some progress in addressing some of the issues. The HR risks, as you probably see, are the ones that where we have reduced mitigated scoring, because some good progress has been made across there on a number of areas across the change, the transition, and some workforce. One particular risk to draw your attention to is SD3, which is mainly about delivery, and because this now reflects the added challenges around the pace of evolution following the comprehensive spending review that obviously took place in between the last meeting. So whilst the headlines were provided on the CSR, the detail behind it was a little bit short in terms of that. So we're expecting that detail to come through probably at budget time in autumn. And obviously, like in terms of some of the programmes, the Shared Prosperity Fund is ending, which is obviously been one of the mainstay of the programmes for us. So we've got to learn out what we're going to do in terms of that going forward. So other than that, recommendation, that's just note the content of the report, and obviously free to ask any questions.
Are there any questions, comments? No. Pleasing to see the progress in the areas that have been made. Obviously, it's still quite a large agenda, so very much welcome Nathan to help us achieve risk situation in due course. Are we minded to agree minded to approve the recommendations? Thank you. Item 12, the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman Annual Review Letter. Paul.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Members will probably recall this item around about this time last year. It's somewhat of a housekeeping report for the time being, because it's another nil return in terms of complaints to the Ombudsman, but nonetheless, it's good practice to report back to this committee for review. In terms of a bit of broader context, this does relate to the report that members approved at the last meeting of the committee about introducing a new corporate complaints policy. That subsequently went on to Combine Authority for ratification. That was approved on the 30th of June. And we're now as officers building that into a practical process online so that people are able to make complaints directly to the Combine Authority in accordance with the Ombudsman's code of practice. So there has been some development since the last meeting. Little else to report on this matter as it is in the report. If members have any comments or concerns, in the meantime, I'm quite happy to take any questions.
Hey, Councillor Lunn.
Yeah, and the report is very gratifying, but we mustn't be complacent.
Absolutely not. Completely agree.
Hey, if there's no other comments, are we minded to agree the voting recommendation?
Yep.
Thank you. Item 13, the Transport Advisory Board, terms of reference to be presented by Paul.
Yes, thanks again, Chair. Slightly more substantive, this report. Members should be familiar with this. I should apologise at the outset. There has been some overlapping reporting and a little bit of duplication. That's simply due to the timescales we're working to get this approved ahead of the Transport Board's first meeting. What I mean by that is we have this meeting today. It's due to be ratified this Friday at the Combined Authority as a straightforward document. Have comments today, so I wouldn't like to take it as a given that it will be approved as submitted. But it does mean that we have several reports live at the moment. Ahead of this meeting, it was emailed around the Constitution Working Group members, so we've had an opportunity to respond ahead of this meeting. We've had one or two comments back on the draft that was submitted to that, and those have been included in this version. That was needed to pick up on the role of the business board representative on the Transport Advisory Board to reflect that it's represents the collective views of the business community, not just a particular industry that a particular member might have a particular interest in. So the document is attached at Appendix 1 for members to review. I would say it's quite a straightforward document. There is some rationale behind that, which is that it's a purely advisory board at this stage. It doesn't have any delegated decision-making powers. And I think the reason behind that is the Mayor's desire to get the right people around the table at the outset, predominantly the portfolio holder from the Combined Authority, the executive members from the two councils, and that business board representative. If we were to go down the decision-making route, we would be looking at probably a politically proportionate committee and the trappings that come with that. You would also be looking at options around a joint committee. You'd be sharing mayoral decision-making powers as well as combined authority and local authority decision-making powers. It becomes a much more complex organism at this stage. So at the moment, it's purely advisory. It will be a properly constituted committee with all of the access to information rules that come with that. It'll be at meetings held in public, papers published on the website, everything that you would expect. But it would be advising rather than deciding. So quite happy to take any questions. As I say, there's a timeline in mind for approval, but we can make any tweaks or amendments if the committee feels necessary.
Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Melly.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering why the business board is the only member that isn't kind of directly related to transport and within the local authorities. Just obviously transport has huge implications for all sorts of sectors, education, access to health services, reducing social isolation, as well as impact on businesses. So just wondering why business was the only kind of interest represented.
I think at the moment, simply because it's another board of the Combined Authority. So it's a committee that exists in its own right at the moment. So private sector membership. I think the desire and the experience we see in other authorities is that you have some private sector representation. That's not to say that this won't be kept under review in the future if there's wider representation and scales from a low carbon perspective. We could look at reviewing that in the future.
Climate change as well, absolutely, yeah, that should be added to the list. Yeah.
Right, if there's no other comments, sorry.
Yeah, on a different subject, so if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
I believe one of the potential powers for the mayor is around transport is taxi and private hire licensing, which the current mayor isn't wanting to take on. But I was just wondering whether these terms of reference need future proofing in case current mayor or future incumbent does want those powers. I know that currently on City of York Council, the executive member of transport has tax licensing in their portfolio, but I don't know if the situation is the same in North Yorkshire and portfolio areas can change. So I was just wondering whether there needs to be something in there. I know there is a kind of rule saying that the board may invite other individuals where relevant to the agenda, but I'm just wondering whether it needs to be in there specifically that if in the future taxi licensing comes under the remit of this board, the executive member with licensing in their portfolio or the licensing committee chair would need to be invited.
That's fine. I'm quite happy to include a provision around that, particularly as you say, to future-proof it. I wonder if it may be worthwhile, rather than specifically focusing on the licensing, maybe sort of more regulatory term, so it picks up any other functions that councils may have, depending on the trajectory of central government.
Is everyone comfortable with that?
Question, yes, we do have North Yorkshire committee that looks after taxis, and believe me, the chair of it thinks he's got large of a chalice.
Yeah. Okay, are we then minded to approve the recommendations with the additional issue that's been raised today?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to item 14, the programme of work. Paul.
Yes, I'll hand over to my colleague Will for this one, Chair.
Yeah.
In my name, but then it's Mr. Hardy.
Thanks, Chair. Work programme is as printed. I suppose the only comment I would make is that it has been updated from some comments that were made at the last meeting around including annual reports for 25-26. So they have been provisionally programmed in, but as it stands, it is as printed.
Okay. Are there any questions, comments? Thank Will for updating it. It allows us to see the fuller picture. All of the areas, there are one or two which don't appear, which perhaps need to have a discussion about.
Just one minor point on what's there, Will, is that the current plan provides for final accounts in the October committee. I think that needs to move to the committee afterwards, because the audit work will be probably commencing in the autumn. All bring drafts to October.
Right. Okay, are we minded to agree that programme with that amendment? Yeah, thank you. Item 15, urgent business. I'm not aware of any. No, okay, thank you very much. Finally, the date of the next meeting will be Tuesday, the 14th of October, 2025, in the Thornton Room at the City of York Council. The start time to be confirmed. There's under the sort of guidance, it is suggested that we do occasionally have informal meetings with our internal auditor. So perhaps if we had used 10 o'clock to 10:30 to do that, then the main meeting at 10:30. Yeah. Would that be something that we'd be happy with?
I think that probably depends on public transport timings.
Yes. Yes. Well, we've previously met at 10 o'clock in York, and we've not had any other requests to change that.
I was the only one that was late, sorry.
That's fine. Yep. Okay, we'll do that then. Okay, so can I thank you all for your attendance and contributions, including from all the officers doing all the hard work behind the scenes. Thank you very much, and that concludes our informal meeting.